Everyone. So now we're going to transition and switch gears. We have the wonderful Sherri Lassila who will be leading us. I'm going to put you on a spotlight here, Sherri. And some of you were introduced to her. She helped facilitate and introduce Leah Weiss last week. So Sherri is an executive coach, leadership facilitator, and a women's leadership expert. She and I have crossed paths through Stanford Business School. She's actually run leadership programs for the Stanford GSB and several other organizations for the past 20 years. So I'm so thrilled to have her here. And Sherri, I have to be honest, I don't have the name of your talk in front of me, so I'm gonna let you say it yourself. But she's gonna be giving a talk on bringing you
the wisdom of the heart, finding meaning, resilience, and inspiration.
The wisdom of the heart, finding meaning, resilience, and inspiration. She has been, so helpful to me as my mom's diagnosis and, illness have been accelerating so quickly. Sherri has stepped in to support me and support this community, and I'm just so grateful to you. It's been a pleasure to collaborate and to lean on you, and thank you for giving me permission to fall apart and to not do it all. So I'm going to pass things off to her, and I'm going to leave you all for today to go be with my sister. So thank you everyone for being with me. And Sherri, I pass it off to you.
Well, thank you, and so much love and so much gratitude to you, and lots of love to your family. I'm so glad that you get to have this precious time, and that we can take what has been, I know, such a joy for you to give to the community, but to also take the lift off your shoulders and to wish you well during this very special time. So here's to you. Well, hi everyone. I am so excited to be with you all today. And I have to say, I am so deeply, deeply honored and humbled to follow Martha Beck, who has been one of my most incredible inspirations for so many years as a coach. I also have read all of her books, given them to my clients. And I'm really touched by her message that this is a time for the light, that this is a time that the world, that all of us can be better than ever before. So my intention for today is to actually guide you through some of my favorite tools and practices for bringing that light out, for finding more meaning, for finding more resilience, for finding more inspiration. We've heard from so many amazing teachers with so many ideas, and so my intention for this time is for it to be a little bit more experiential, a little bit more interactive, and really give you a couple of things that you want to take away, have a chance to reflect on how you might put it into practice in a way that's going to really make a difference for you. So that's my intention also, that we'll have some connection and some real takeaways from this time. I'd like to start with a meditation. And this is a meditation that is a bit of a variation, but based on a technique called the Quick Coherence technique from HeartMath Institute. Some of you may know HeartMath has been studying with lots of scientific research for many years the connection between our mind and our brain. And this is something that you can do in 60 seconds to bring a greater state of coherence between the mind and the heart, to drop out of our head into our heart for increased clarity, focus, well-being, calm, and ease. And so I'm going to ask us all to close our eyes while I guide this and follow along. So let's just start with taking a couple of long, deep, nourishing, and relaxing breaths. Nice, long, and slow, deep breaths, like you could breathe all the way down into your belly, all the way down into your legs, all the way down into your feet, even all the way down into the earth. And on the exhale, just completely relaxing and letting everything go. And now, as you continue to do some deep breathing, I'd like for you to imagine that you're taking the breath in and out of your heart. So we're doing heart breathing, long, deep, slow inhalation into the heart, allowing your heart to expand, and then a nice relaxing exhalation, breathing out of the heart, everything can relax. Let's do a few more of those, deep breathing, long and deep, in and out of the heart, imagining you're filling your heart, and imagining on the exhale, everything relaxes and expands. And now while you continue the heart breathing, you might even put your hand over your heart to help focus your energy in that area. I want you to bring to mind something that brings warm, happy, loving feelings, and hold the feeling of that as you're breathing in and out of your heart. So you can bring to mind someone that you love very much and a moment of being with that person. Or you can bring to your mind just a happy memory from that past, maybe a special place that you like to be, or something that filled you with joy. And holding the image and the feeling of this loved one or this special memory, just breathing deeply in and out of your heart. Allowing your heart to fully expand with these warm, loving, happy feelings. And as Martha described to us, the ball of light that she felt that was like the love of the universe and full of possibility. Let's add that in. You can even imagine that ball of light right here at the center of your heart, filling your heart with light. And then what I'd like to do next is let's connect our balls of light around the circle with everyone that's here today, and even with all of the folks who might be listening in on recordings later. So if you can imagine that we're all together here in one room, kind of in a great big circle, let's extend that light out to each other around the circle so we can feel the entire circle of us coming into connection with our hearts and connection with that light. And let's send a little bit of extra light out to Vanessa and to her family who are in this deep touching time today. And let's also send some of that love and that light out to anyone who may be, that we know personally, who may be impacted by any of what's going on right now. So just sending out that heart energy to the people that we care about. And then let's add to that, sending out a bit of gratitude to all of the healthcare providers and all of the folks who are on the front lines, working hard to help other people, even to all of the folks who are providing those necessary services that keep us going, the folks in the grocery stores, all of the people who are in some way contributing to the continuation of life and to the healing of other folks. So just sending out that gratitude. Really feeling that gratitude almost like that beam of light in our heart, like we could surround all of those people with it. And you can even see them in this moment, really taking it in, really feeling the gratitude that we have to share. And then the final thing we'll do here is, with all of that light and all of that gratitude, let's send it out to the entire world, to anyone and everyone who is affected by what's happening now, which we all are. So sending out that light, sending out that heart energy, actually seeing and imagining for just one moment the idea that Martha gave us actually becoming true, the idea that this is a time that everything changes for the better, that this is a time that somehow we get more connected as a humanity, we get more connected to each other, we get more connected to our light, we get more connected to our values, we get more connected to those things that deeply matter, that are most meaningful for us, and that there is a kind of transformation, the kind of transformation in the world that we have all been waiting for. And so with all of the intention and all of the heart energy and all of the power that we have, seeing that, intending that into being. And then whenever you're ready, coming on back and opening your eyes and joining back to the group. So just notice if anything shifted for you in just the last couple of moments as we took the time to really get connected to our hearts and send it out and feel connected to something bigger than us. That's a big part of what my message and some of the things I'm going to be guiding today is the importance of doing that at this time, and also the impact, the benefit that can happen from doing this at this time. HeartMath Institute, in addition to having done a tremendous amount of research on the benefits of doing our own heart coherence, has done a lot of research on the benefit of global heart coherence or group coherence, that when we do these kinds of things as a large group and send that energy out on a large scale, if enough of us are doing that, that we actually do have a meaningful impact on the collective consciousness of the planet. So would love to encourage anyone who's inspired to do that. HeartMath is having a global heart coherence initiative right now where they're encouraging people to do that on a large scale every day. What I'd like to do next is, so I'm going to do a few different things that are, as we go today. The thing that I'd like to do next is a guided practice, is a variation of self-compassion practice. We had originally planned to have Kristen Neff, who is the guru of self-compassion, as a speaker on this summit, and she was sick, so she hasn't been able to join us yet, and I do believe that she will be joining us in the coming weeks. But I wanted to offer you a version of what she calls the self-compassion break, which is a 5-minute practice, and I do my own variation of it that I offer with clients. So I'm going to illustrate it with an example of a client that I used this with in the last week, and then I'll actually guide it for you guys so that you can connect to something that might be difficult or stressful for you and see how this practice can make a difference. So the client situation where I use this practice, it was a woman, and it sounds like some of you may be feeling this as well, a woman who has a very young child at home, and she has a full-time job, which has, if anything, doubled in demands because of what's happening with the virus, and now she's needing to try to be able to fulfill those extra demands at work while also caring for her toddler at home, and she's juggling in shifts with her husband. So her work day has been kind of cut in half while she's caring for her baby in the morning and then working in the afternoon. And she was sharing with me the feeling of feeling like she just couldn't possibly do enough. Like she wasn't doing enough with her child. She wasn't doing enough with work. She was afraid that she was letting people down. She was concerned for then the impact. She'd always been kind of a top performer at work, and so she didn't want to shift. She was afraid of, well, what's going to happen if I can't put in the time and energy that I always used to be able to put in. And so we paused in that moment, and the practice that we did, the first step in the practice is to, like Martha was talking about the dirty pain, or Vanessa was talking about it as the second arrow, that spinning of thoughts that we do where we're adding on top of. So the situation is, I have to care for my child and fulfill all these demands at work, and then adding all the on top of it, I'm not enough, I'm letting people down, the suffering. And so the first thing that we do to interrupt that is to simply name the experience that we're having, which is something like, ouch, this is really hard. I'm feeling not enough. I'm feeling concerned that I'm letting people down. I'm struggling with this, right? So that's just the first step, is just an ouch, this is hard, and simply naming the experience that you're having, naming the feeling. And then the second step is recognizing how many other people, thousands, millions perhaps of other people, are facing the same situation right now. So that looked like, wow, millions of parents across the globe right now are struggling on our challenge with how to care for their children while also doing, achieving the results and fulfilling their responsibilities at work. Wow. So we're connecting to the common humanity of it. And then the third step is like a wish or intention, because we can go into criticism, self-criticism, and difficulty on this. Is in Kristen's work, we often do this as just, may I be kind to myself. What I like to add is an intention, in a sense that's kind of like the turnaround or the opposite, as Martha was giving us. Which is, for me and all of the millions of parents out there who are feeling not enough, May we know deep in our heart, deep in our being, that we are enough. May we appreciate all of the hard work that we and others are doing. May we find ways, new ways, creative possibilities for how we can be parents and we can be extraordinary workers all at the same time. May we find ways to prioritize what matters most and let go of other things. May we find ways to self-care and figure out sustainable ways of working where we can care for our families, do extraordinary work, and care for ourselves all at the same time. So it's a bit of a, in some ways, I heard Vanessa ask the question of like, well, what can we do? And there are some practical things you can do, but there's also, it's a bit of an unsolvable dilemma, and one that many people are facing, and also the birth seeds of a new possibility, right? How can we find greater sustainability with this kind of challenge that so many parents are facing? So those are the steps, and I'd love to guide it for you guys if you want to take a moment and think about, I'm just seeing that there's background noise. So take a moment and think about a situation, something that is difficult for you in this time or that is causing you stress. Could be something related to the pandemic, could be just something that's a stressful situation for you. Right now, Martha gave us lots of examples. I know the leaders that I'm in contact with are having lots and lots of examples at work of things that are stressful, uncertain, rapidly changing, increasing demands. So just think of something that is difficult or causing you stress and allow yourself to feel the experience of it just for a moment. Like notice and you might like to close your eyes. I like to close my eyes when I do these. Notice for a moment, what are some of the thoughts that you have going around? You might notice what are some of the emotional quality that you have, the feelings, if there's sensation, constriction in your body at all, that often comes with stress and difficulty. And then simply name the experience that you're having. And again, you might even put your hand on your heart as you do this and just saying, ouch, this is hard. And see if you can give your experience a short name. I'm struggling with fill in the blank. I'm feeling worried. I'm feeling stressed. Whatever it is you might be feeling. And then take a moment to notice how many thousands or millions of other people might be struggling with the very same thing right at this moment. And even if they're not struggling with the very same thing, they might be struggling with the very same emotion. For the millions of people that are feeling worried right now, for the millions of people that are feeling stressed. And as you're feeling the connection with those people and knowing that you're not alone in this experience, see what's the wish, the hope, the intention, the new possibility, the opposite possibility that arises as a may we all be kind to ourselves. May we all find greater peace. May we all learn new ways to ease the anxiety. May we all just see what arises for you. And what I'd love to do is hear some of these. And even what I'd really love to do is have us put these in the chat so that we can all see them. So as soon as you have yours, I want to encourage you to just write. The structure would be for the millions or for the thousands who are feeling or struggling with blank. May we all blank. So I'll even put that in the chat. For the millions who are struggling with, and let's see some of yours. You can also unmute yourself and share if you'd like, but I'd also love to get a bunch of these in the chat as you have them. Anybody willing to share? Anybody able to write it in? May we all authentically care for each other and the planet. Thank you. That's beautiful. Can we have a few more? May we all, and it's great also if you share the experience too. May we all rise above the anxiety. So for the millions who are feeling anxiety and suffering, may we all rise above it and overcome this challenge with joy and love in community. Thank you. So beautiful. I'd love to get a couple more. So as you're posting more, I want to just say a few more words about like what's happening here in this practice, why this works, why we do this, and what this can be a bridge to in terms of finding the next wise action or kind of ways to be the cause to have some of these intentions really start to come into being. So what we're doing here, the first two moves, finding self-kindness instead of self-judgment, and connecting to the common humanity versus the isolation that some of us may be feeling with some of these things. These two moves are an antidote to the kind of self-criticism that so many of us can get into. Carol Robin, Stanford Business School professor who was our speaker last week, talked a lot about this. In fact, I think she opened with asking us all to be aware of our inner critic and helping, if we're leaders, to be helping others be aware of our inner critics so that we're not believing them all the time. Because one of the things that can happen, particularly in an environment of stress, one of the first, there's a model around 3 Ps for resilience. 3 Ps are cognitive distortions that can happen at times of stress. And the first one is personalization. And personalization, we have, even though we may know intellectually, it's not just me, we have the feeling of this is my problem. And not only this is my problem, there must be something wrong with me that I'm having it, or maybe I shouldn't even be having it. And so in the example that I gave before of my client who was struggling with this feeling of not enough, one thing that this practice began to do is, instead of trying to push away that feeling of not enough and being in reaction to it and then taking reactive behavior around that, this was a way of connecting with her compassion, but then also pausing that reactivity for a moment to be able to connect with her values and make a different choice. Like, how can we then show up consistent with our values or consistent with these intentions? And so I'll give you like a little example of what that could look like, and then maybe you have an idea for your own. In her case, she's a person, her values are excellence and quality and kind of, kicking it out of the ballpark. She's the kind of person who likes to do 120%, and she gets a lot of joy out of going that extra mile for people. And so that was really what she was really struggling with. But inside of a sense where she was going with it, the reactivity of feeling not enough, inside of that, it could look something like if she was going to speak to her team or to her manager, for example, it could look something like, I know I'm really not doing enough, and I'm so sorry, and I must really be letting the team down, but you got to understand, I'm really struggling, with this child at home, and I just can't do anymore, so please don't ask me to do anymore. I can't show up on calls before noon. I'm doing the best I can. And while you could feel some compassion and empathy for her in that feeling, it doesn't really inspire, it's not really coming from her values. And what that's likely to create is a sense among people that she's not doing enough because she's putting it out there that way. And so the new opportunity in the shift, once we really turned toward it and we got the intention, wow, my intention is to create sustainable ways of being. And working where we can care for children and where we can still do extraordinary results. Well, how do I show up consistent with that? And so it sounds a lot more like I deeply care about this team, and I also deeply care about my family, and I'm committed to finding ways to make this work. I don't have as many hours in the day as I used to have before, but what I'm looking to do is prioritize those things that matter most, be in really close communication with you all, look for ways to delegate or have people step in so that you might be able to take something on new and have it as a growth opportunity for you. ways to pull together. And I want to know, I struggle sometimes with feeling not enough. I want to know that I'm practicing this way of being enough. I want you all on the team to know that you are enough, and we're creating together here a new way of working where we recognize that everybody's enough and everybody's doing their best, where we create tremendous safety for each other, and then where we still expect and ask for the very best that we can do and the very best results that we can produce. Right, so it's a shift out of the reactivity and into a really strong intention of living our values. And so I would encourage you, as you have things that you're struggling with, to take that moment to turn toward yourself with compassion, take that moment to find the authentic intention, and then begin to look at, well, what would it look like to show up from my values? What would it look like to, if I let go of all the personalization, if I let go of any feelings of self-criticism or not enough, how can I begin to be a generator for this? And so I just want to read out a couple of the others that have come through here because they're really beautiful. And so let's see. May we all have more compassion for the ones who are a little insane and not at peace. For all struggling with the anxiety of their parents as they get older, may we all have ease and flow with the rest of their lives. May we all have peace and joy for each other in advancing years. For all who are well but struggling with anxiety about COVID-19, for yourself, for your loved ones, may we all find inner peace and the ability to live in the moment. For all experiencing pain, may we know clean pain and a sense of well-being and freedom. May we live to express our individual talents in a way that fulfills us and to share those in a loving way with others. May we all live our true nature and inspire others to do the same with carefreeness and the joy of living. So I'm really touched by these. Let's take just a moment to, just like we did in the beginning meditation, to, with all the power that we have, may all of these intentions come true, and may we all have the strength to begin to find baby steps, small ways, a choice we could make, a communication we could have tomorrow, a baby step action we could take today toward the direction and fulfillment of these intentions. So I'm not going to take us into breakout groups right now, but later on in the call, we will have a chance to discuss with each other and do some breakout groups. And this might be a nice thing for folks to look at, is kind of what, if this is inspiring to you, to begin to think about, well, what is a way to start to show up consistent with this? What's a communication you might have? What's an action you might take? So mark that, bookmark that, and we'll come back to it a little later when we come to the interactive portion. I'm going to take a breath and maybe a drink for a moment. So where I want to go next is to talk a little bit more about finding meaning. And how do we find meaning? Why is it important? What's the deeper meaning that we can find in all of this? And because what I love about this, one of the things I love about this last practice that we just did and the way that we did it is, not only it reminds us that we're not alone, but it connects us to something bigger than ourselves. And the moment that we're connected to something bigger than ourselves, the moment that we're looking for ways to be of service, not just to ourselves, but to be of service on a larger scale, to be of service even just to one other person in our lives, that's how we connect with meaning. And so meaning is actually defined. It's one of the highest levels of happiness that we can have. In positive psychology, they define 3 levels of happiness. The first level is pleasure. It's the kind of simple happiness that I can get from having an ice cream cone or going to a spa, all of those kinds of things that we are more limited from doing these days as we can't get out of our houses, but there's still lots of things we can do for pleasure. But that's just the first level of happiness. The second level of happiness is engagement, and engagement is when we are doing things that we truly love to do. Usually there are things that are our strengths, which means we get strength from them. There are things that we're good at, There are things we enjoy, there are things we love to do, and there are those kinds of things that when we're doing them, we can get absorbed, like time seems to stand a little bit more still, or we get absorbed into a little bit more of a flow state. And so that's engagement. And then meaning comes from doing something that engages us and applied to a need or a purpose that we care about. And so one of the things that I often suggest to people to do, there's a few simple things that we can do to start to add just a little bit more meaning. But one of the things that we can start to do is look for, well, what are those things that really engage us, and how do I do more of those in what I'm already doing today? Sometimes people can shift their role a little bit to do more of what truly engages us. Sometimes we can just bring more engagement into the things that we already have to do just by bringing some conscious attention to it. And then I'd encourage you to look for, like, what are some of those needs that are right around you, that you can do something that you love to do that will make a difference for other people in some way. And that's what really connects us to meaning. And I want to talk for a little bit about meaning as a source of not just great happiness, but as a source of resilience for us in difficult times. One of my greatest inspirations at a time when I was going through a really difficult time, and it was a time in some ways not unlike now, where I felt trapped. I was in a situation where I actually couldn't leave the country that I was in, and I wasn't home. I was abroad in Asia at the time, and I was far away from family, and I was going through some really difficult things, and I couldn't leave because of some of the circumstances that I was in. And I turned to the book by Viktor Frankl, some of you may know, Man's Search for Meaning. So Viktor Frankl was in the concentration camps back during the Holocaust and World War II. And as he was taken into the concentration camps, he found that what happened was he had just written a manuscript that was ready to be published, and it was confiscated by the Nazis as he went into the concentration camp. And so he went in to the concentration camp with a deep desire in his heart to rewrite or reproduce that manuscript, and it gave him a purpose that he really deeply cared about during that time. And he found that by having that kind of a purpose, it helped him to bear some of the horrors and the difficulties of what he was going through around him. And so let me see if I can grab, I had a couple of quotes because I wanted to share a quote or two by him. So 2 quotes I wanted to share. One is, "Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way." And he also says, "A man who becomes conscious of the responsibility he bears toward a human being who affectionately waits for him, or to an unfinished work, will never be able to throw away his life. He knows the why for his existence and will be able to bear almost any how." And there's a lot of research behind this as well, that purpose is a key, having a sense of meaning and purpose is a key to resilience, is also a key to great satisfaction, is also a key to great leadership. I don't see many of your faces in this moment. I see everybody's on their camera hidden, so there's mostly just names that I see, but I do see one person's face who I am seeing with a great smile and some tears in the corner of your eye. So I just wanted to take a moment and pause. And my biggest intention today was to be of service in some way. So if I can be of service in a way that even just touches one person. It's hard on Zoom. I love doing work in interactive groups with people where I can really see and be with people. And on Zoom, I sometimes feel like I'm talking to a computer. So anyway, I'm glad to see that it's touching to someone. It means a lot to me to connect with you in this moment. So just having a moment of connection. So So back to meaning. So there are a number of ways that we can look, without adding a lot of work to our lives, because some of us are already quite busy and overwhelmed. How do we bring more meaning, for more happiness, for more resilience during these times? And I want to offer one. We can come back to some other ways of meaning, but I want to offer one way. I'm a big fan of doing what we already are doing. Like, what can you bring to something that you're already doing, or what can you do as a micro practice, so it's not going to take a lot of time and energy, but can be part of what's already going on. And I want to suggest that one of the ways that we can add a lot of meaning, that's also a protective factor for us, a resilience factor, a protective factor for things like burnout and stress, is in our connection with other people. And in the quality of presence that we can bring to other people, and the quality of that connection. The kind of a connection, if I go back to my example of my client earlier, the kind of a connection that says, you're enough and I'm here for you. And that kind of quality of presence and connection can make a huge difference in a way that is deeply meaningful, both for us and for the other people that we're around. And all of us, even though it's on Zoom, we're still interacting with other people. So I want to illustrate this by way of a story. And this is a story called The Rabbi's Gift. And it's a story about a monastery that had fallen on hard times. There were only 5 monks left in this monastery. They were all over the age of 70. And none of the people were really coming to the monastery anymore. And so the monastery was really beginning to die out. And the leader of the monastery, the abbot, was wanting to figure out, well, what can we do to revive and save this monastery? And so the story goes that there was a wise rabbi who lived in the woods nearby. And so the abbot, the leader of the monastery, went to go visit this wise man, this rabbi, to find out and get advice. What can I do to save this dying institution? And so he went to the rabbi and explained the predicament that they were in, and asked, do you have any advice for me, what we can do to really revive this institution? We're really dying out here. And the rabbi, all the rabbi was able to do was to kind of empathize with him, and to say, you know what, I actually don't know what you can do. I'm facing a similar problem here as well. The spirit seems to have gone out of the people. Nobody's coming to pray anymore. I really don't have any advice for you, or know what you can do. But even though I don't have advice for you, I can tell you one thing. And the thing that I can tell you is that one of the 5 of you is the Messiah. Now, let me say a little bit about the word Messiah, because I've told this story in sometimes international audiences where that word doesn't mean a lot to many people. But the idea of the Messiah in religious terms, where the rabbi was coming from, is the Messiah is the one who is sent by God to save the people and to save the world. So in this case, it's like what he's saying is one of the 5 of you is the leader who will save the world, is the leader who has that kind of capacity and brilliance and talent, and is here to save the world. And so, not having gotten any advice, the abbot, the leader of this monastery, thanks the rabbi, they hug, and he goes back to the monastery, to the monks, and says, they're all eager, like, what can we do? What can we do? Did you get any advice? And so the abbot says, well, no, I didn't get any advice. He didn't have any advice, but he said this really strange thing. He said that one of us is the leader who is going to save the world. And so what began to happen was everybody started to look around, and like, one of the 5 of us is the leader who's going to save the world, or which one could it be? And so they started with, well, it must be, Father Abbot, our leader of our monastery. He's always been our leader. He's been our leader for years. Surely he's the one who's the Messiah. He's the one who's going to be the savior and the leader. But then they started to look around at each other, and they saw, oh, well, it could be Father Peter. Father Peter is extraordinarily wise. Maybe he's the one who's going to be the leader, who's going to save the world. And then they looked at Father Paul and they said, it couldn't be Father Paul. Father Paul is annoying. He's kind of crotchety, but come to think of it, he's often right about things. But maybe it could be Father Father Paul. I wonder if it could be Father Paul. And then they started to look at themselves and they said, well, surely it couldn't be me. I couldn't be the Messiah. I couldn't be this extraordinary being, this leader. But I wonder if maybe it could be me. And what if it is me? And what began to happen over the next weeks and months is they began to treat each other with the extraordinary respect, as if, well, what if one of them was truly this leader, this Messiah? They began to treat themselves and they began to treat each other with an incredible kind of extraordinary respect, seeing each other as this gift, as this miracle, as this leader being, and treating each other that way. And what began to happen was a special bond began to form around them, and there was a revival of energy and enthusiasm in just the five of them and what they were doing. And then there were people who used to come and picnic on the grounds at the monastery, and they began to feel drawn kind of to this energy that was coming from like something, they didn't quite know why, but something special was happening here among these five. And they began to bring their friends, and then more people came. And then soon some of the people began to talk to the monks and said, you know, what would it be like to maybe join this order? I've really always wanted to be a monk. And so maybe one of them joined, and then others joined. And over the next months and years, the organization began to thrive again and became really a source of light in the world. You know, just as I'm being touched again by what Martha was sharing earlier, that ability to be a source of light in the world. And so I love this story because it's a way that, it's a very, very simple way that we can all begin to be a source of light in the world in a really simple way, simply by giving that kind of quality of listening, the quality of presence, the quality of care to somebody that we're already with, just in that moment of, you know, I see you, I see the gift in you, I appreciate you, you are enough. And so I want to invite all of us for just a moment, you know, to see if that story touched you. But then I want to get it personal and get it real and get it actionable. Like what can we do with this? So I would invite you to think of a time, that you felt really seen, that maybe somebody in your life, maybe somebody that you worked with, maybe somebody in your personal life really saw you, really respected you, saw the gift in you, appreciated you, gave you that kind of feeling like that you were special or that who you are is enough. And I'll give all of us just a couple of moments to think about that time, think about that person, and remember, what was the impact that had on you? What was the impact it had on you? What was the impact it had on the relationship? And what was the impact that it had on the work? So I just am seeing a note on the chat that somebody is saying that they're here to do the breakout rooms, which is fabulous. We're getting, I saved the breakout rooms for toward the end in case there were people who weren't going to do the breakout rooms. So in case people drop off or that, because that's happened before where some people don't want to do the breakout rooms. So I've saved the breakout rooms for the end, but we're getting set up shortly to go into a breakout room. To do some group discussion around this, and then also to do some group discussion around taking some of the insights that we've had in the summit and putting them into action. So let's work with this, and then we'll set up to go out into a discussion. So thinking of that impact of being seen and being respected in this way, and if anybody is feeling like, well, it's hard to even think of a moment or a time that you've been seen and respected in this way. I know I sometimes, would struggle with things like that in these kinds of exercises. Just make a note. I just want to normalize that. And if anybody is feeling like, well, I don't get seen and respected in this way, take that as a a moment of opportunity that this is, you know, we're in a culture of so much busyness, and often we're in work cultures of so much, you know, productivity, where we're almost treating people like result producing machines. We often don't take the time to really sit and give this kind of a quality of presence. So let it inspire you, because we can have this kind of meaning that I'm talking about by being received in this way, but we can also have this kind of meaning by giving it in this way. And so if anybody is out there feeling like, wow, I'm touched by this because I've had that and I want to give it, great. And if you're feeling like I haven't had that, allow it to touch you in a way that maybe you would also want to give it. And you may be surprised at what comes back when you start to give it. So thinking about this person, this way that it's maybe been impactful for you to receive this quality of presence, think about whether there is anywhere in your life or in your work right now that you may not be giving this quality of presence to someone. Maybe, and you know, again, just to normalize that, we're all in pretty stressful situation right now. There might be people on work teams who are distracted, or who are not giving what they normally give, or who are stressed, or who are more annoying than usual. And we may be finding that we're not always showing up as our best selves in response to that. So just take a moment to notice, is there anywhere that you're not giving this kind of quality of presence where it could benefit to give this? We used to, I used to teach an executive development program in organizations that was based on a Stanford Business School course called Creativity in Business. And we used to share this story, and the practice that we would give after this story was a week-long action experiment for people to do. We called it See with the Heart. And it was encouraging everyone on the team to really begin to see and treat each other this way for a week, and to see what the impact was on the team. And you know, these days we are hearing a lot about the research on psychological safety, which some of you may be familiar with. Google actually did a study on what was the thing that had the teams that were high performing, you know, separate from the teams that weren't as high performing. And the number one thing that they found that made the biggest difference on their teams and their team's performance was this sense of psychological safety, which is the feeling that people could just simply be themselves, the feeling that they could be themselves, that they could speak up, that if they made a mistake, that it would be okay, that it would be forgiven, that they could recover, because that opens up a tremendous amount of ability for people to be real, for people to tell the truth, for people to be creative. And so if ever there were a time to enhance psychological safety with anyone in your life, or with anyone at work, or with anyone on your teams, this is a time when we all need a little bit more of it. And so bringing this kind of a quality of presence is a way to really make a difference, is a way for meaning for you, is a way for meaning for others. And so with that, what I would love to do is to set up some breakout rooms where we can start to discuss a little bit what you might want to put into action from any of what we've talked. And I think what we'll do, I think we have time for 2 rounds. So you see people are starting to drop off. So for anybody that is not going to be doing breakouts, it's great if you guys want to drop off before we set up the breakouts. Let me describe what we're going to do in the breakouts, and then anybody who doesn't want to do that can go ahead and drop off, so we can create breakout rooms with the folks who really want to be in discussion around this and figuring out what you want to take into action. So the first breakout room that we'll do is I'm going to encourage you to share about the impact, if there has been somebody who has had this kind of an impact on you, where they really saw you, what that was like, and then share about a place that you would really like to bring this, and get it specific, get it actionable. who, where, when, what meeting, what day, like what do you have coming up? That's maybe just one time that you can practice this and what kind of an impact that might make. So that'll be our first breakout. And then the second breakout that we'll do is, and I'll guide it along the way, but just to give you a little preview, the second breakout that we'll do is I'll have you share, some of the things that have been inspiring to you from the session. It could be today's session, it could be Martha's session, it could be any of the sessions that we've had on the summit, like one idea, one insight, one thing that's been inspiring. And have you start to really reflect on what it would be like to put that into action and into practice, and what might be a baby step for you to do that. So this next portion is going to be really about kind of touching into that inspiration, and instead of having it just be a great idea, get it looking specific enough that you can start to bring it into practice, into action, and then sharing it with each other so that we can uplift and inspire each other with maybe both some of the things that we're already doing, because I know a lot of us are already doing a lot, and then some of the things that we may want to do that we're taking away from all of the great ideas that have been shared. Okay, everybody's back. So we're down to a smaller group right now, so we may just take some time here together in the group for some discussion. I'm curious, before we go on to additional questions, if anybody has anything that you would like to share, or if anybody has any questions, share questions. Yes, Karen, go ahead and unmute yourself and just jump in.
I think I did. Yes, I did. I have to share this. Over a year ago, I was in one of Vanessa's challenges, meditation challenges, and that's where I met Vanessa Jolet, who I was just in a breakout room with. We have been writing every day for over a year, and she has been such a major support for me. And she shared that I had also done the same for her. We were in tears, so.
Oh, so
they were happy tears. They were such joyful tears. And it was just so special. I can't tell you. Maybe you can share this with Vanessa. It has been such a positive relationship in my life. There's a big age difference, but we decided early on we were just people, and that's, we're two people, and we've shared so much in the last over a year now. It was in January of last year that we started writing. That's it. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thank you for sharing. And what a moment of serendipity that of all the people that came together on a call today, that the two of you would end up in a breakout room together to celebrate the relationship that you have built. I'm really touched by that.
Incredible. Thank you.
And it's an inspiration to hear it. So thank you. Anyone else on the line? Comments, questions, anything that you wanted to share from that? And so I'm seeing just a couple of faces, and mostly I'm seeing kind of names and folks who are on mute. So I'm not sure if those folks are still even fully here in the discussion. So we're a small group that's left. So I'm open to what you guys would most like to use the remaining time that we have for. What I thought that I would like to do next is to talk a little bit more about some of the other insights, right? And just kind of glean some insights that we might be wanting to put into practice. And really looking, so like Martha had talked about this being the time of opportunity, and I've certainly been seeing it that way. So like what, if we start to look at like what are the insights that you most want to put into practice, what's the big opportunity for you at this time, right? And how might we begin to activate that with just a small baby step? So, and maybe since it's just, I'm not even sure who's left, and it's just such a small group, let's just talk here in the main session. I would love to start with maybe a couple people, if you would share, like, what's something that's been sticking with you from this summit so far? Maybe something from today, or maybe something from one of the previous weeks, maybe something you've already started putting into action, and what's the result of that, or just an insight, something that you're like, you know, I remember hearing that, or I heard that today, and it's something I really want to do.
Sherri?
Yes.
Yeah, first I want to thank you so much to you, to Karen, and all the participants for being here. That makes a huge difference.
Mm.
And I mean, there's so much I hope to keep with me from all of that. But in these last days, this thing from, I think it's Carol Robin who said that, and I would say that I've heard Oprah Winfrey say the same, actually, that every single of us, we want to be seen, heard, and know that we matter. Mm. I love that, because I truly try to incarnate this every day with, as you were saying before, the presence you can have if you embody it, being, you know, more specific, mm-hmm. knowing that each person wants to be seen, heard, and know they matter. Mm. I think you can't not be authentic in that case. So
yeah,
I love.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And it sounds like you are already putting that into practice, and we have the evidence right here of the impact of your having put that into practice. So
that's the same for Karen. She exactly does the same for me. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm just curious, can I get a sense if there's anybody else that's actually still on with us? Maybe raise your hand or just speak so that I know if I'm here with Vanessa and Karen, or if there are other folks also here in the conversation. I see names, Beata, Susan, and Adrienne. Anybody else here? So it's just if it's just the two of you participating in a discussion, then we can see, where do you want to go next?
Oh, wow. I feel so special.
You're always very special, but you get to be pretty, you know, you get to actually, we get to shape this time. It's like precious time that there's just the two of you who have this incredible relationship with each other, maybe a couple of listeners, and then, you know, I'm here to just be of service. And as I said, my intention is like, let's look for what's the next stretch of opportunity, maybe that you haven't thought about yet, but that you want to start to think about. Or imagine into, that we could use this time for.
Sherri?
Yeah.
You've inspired me when you said, what would be an action tomorrow you would like to take? And the fact that I said that I would like people to care for each other and the planet, mm-hmm. I thought, you know, I always go for a small walk in nature. So I always try to be careful to all the sounds, even more now because my walk is a bit shorter as I'm, you know, kind of restricted with distance. So I thought that maybe, you know, I will try to enjoy this fully and then write a little poetry for nature. That's
beautiful. Wow, thank you. I wish we could see it. I wish there was a way that we could see it if you're writing some poetry for nature. But
I can try to send, if Vanessa gives us the address, I can send it.
Yeah, I'm sure she would. I'm sure she would. She's going to love this story, and I'm sure she would love to see or hear the poetry.
So I'll send to her, and she sent to you.
Yeah, that's great. How about you, Karen? Anything coming up for you in terms of inspirations?
Well, I have, sorry.
Go ahead.
Sherri, I've recently started doing the heart.
Oh, she's just frozen. I think you've frozen on your screen, and I wish I could hear you. Maybe she'll come back. Okay, now you're back. Sorry that you froze for a moment, so I wasn't able to hear. You said I heard you start to say that you recently started doing the heart math.
Right. Mm-hmm. And it has been invaluable for me. And it was only a couple of weeks ago, a friend of mine said, can I do heart math with you? And I said, absolutely. Anything to do with the heart. And I felt so warm and so loved. And I had felt vulnerable and unloved beforehand. And it's amazing how we can feel that way. Maybe intellectually knowing, well, she loves me or he loves me, but feeling like nobody loves me in a moment.
Yeah.
And then how that changes when you start to feel that love in your own heart for someone else. Or I think the first time I was for a dog. That's all. And that was, but today I felt so many people in there. And it just expanded and expanded and expanded. And that's the first time it's been that expansive.
Wow.
So it was just beautiful. It was wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you. I'm glad you shared that. Yeah, it's powerful to do it together as a big group. And it's powerful to extend it like beyond ourselves and really extend it out, you know.
Absolutely. I could feel everybody's hand. I could feel the warmth of it, you know, all around. It was warm. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. You're so welcome. It's amazing. Good. I don't know if did either of you share the intention that we took from the self-compassion exercise? Would that be like for the millions who are feeling, may we all, I mean, that could be another place that we could look for a few moments, is what's that intention, and then what's that intention sort of calling for, if you were going to start to move in the direction of the intention.
Vanessa, you want to go or?
Actually, I was talking about mine, so maybe you can go, Karen, because I've read yours and I liked it. So
mine is, and I've had this feeling for a few days as my family shared talents on text, whether that be photography or poetry. I have 4 sisters and a brother, and so we were trying to lift each other up. And I think I would like to see everyone appreciate and share the individual talents that they have, and to give that lovingly to everyone, and just think of all that we would receive and give if we were just free and let it flow and flow and flow. I think you've made me high today.
You're on fire.
I'm getting there. And I'm all by myself. I have no other person here, no animals. And I was thinking at one point, poor me, and no, there's so many others. They're all there. They're still there. You're just not touching them.
Right, right.
So Vanessa talked.
I love the inspiration that the inspiration that's flowing. Yeah, like what if we all get to just be free to share our talent in that way? Like, isn't that contributing to the world that we're envisioning, that Martha took us on a journey to? Right. That's yeah.
You scared me a little at first, but with the story, but it was a very, very good session.
Yeah.
Very good session.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Yes,
so, and we can end here if we want to, and we can also just, kind of take the last few moments to continue to talk and see if there's anything else that wants to come up to be explored. I know one of the things that's been personally inspiring for me during this time is, as I was listening to Martha at the beginning, and she said, I've been waiting for this moment all my life. I feel like one of the moments that I've been waiting for maybe 15 years or more is for the world to take a moment of pause. I remember I used to say, like, can we just stop the world for a moment or a day so that I can have a break? I like I can take a step from the moving train of how fast everything is moving, and like really just have a chance to think about what matters most to me, to let go of some of the things that like are going so fast, and to really realign with what's most important to me. And so when this started to happen and the shelter-in-place order first came in, that was my first reaction, was like, oh, the world is taking a pause, like the world actually stopped. Like, unfortunately for many, many people, work hasn't stopped, or the demands of life, or for some people, the demands of life are even increasing. But there is this sense of like a moment of collective pause where we get to say, you know, what is it in this time that we're pausing and letting go of so many things that we normally do? Like, what do we want to let go of? And if we truly come back to what's most essential for us and what matters most, what do we want to embrace? Like, what are those most essential things that we want more of, that we want to really realign with? And kind of what's the opportunity for us to begin to bring this light, this kind of heaven on earth world that so many of us have been longing for, and haven't known how to kind of stop the world long enough to like start to change the direction of the train a little bit. So I really feel that inspiration, and that's an inquiry that I'm in for myself right now, and really wanting to be in with other people, is sort of like, what's the realignment? What's the realignment opportunity? What's the realignment for me? What's the realignment for you? What's the realignment for us as an organization, for us as a larger culture? And there is some large-scale work that's going on with this right now, which I'm excited about. I don't know if you guys have come across Otto Scharmer's work at all, but he's running I think he's got 5,000 people right now inside of this inquiry of, not exactly what I just said, his version of it, but inside of the inquiry of like, what's possible when we let go of the things that are not essential and begin to really align and reimagine how we live and work together. And he's collecting that information and across like a large scale of 5,000 people in that inquiry together over a period of 14 weeks. So I'm really excited to see, you know, what starts to come forth from that when we get a really big group of people inside that inquiry together. I know for me, I would create a lot more space. I would want a lot more spaciousness in my life. I would want a lot more of my kind of dedication, time, heart, like to really focus on my time with my family and the loved ones, the people that matter most. And then and then to focus on just like, if I could really pause things, like to just focus on the one or two things at work where I feel like that's the impact that I'm here on the planet for. Like that's my gift that I really want to give. So that's my realignment intention. It's a day-by-day baby steps, but I thought I'd share that with you guys.
Great, thank you. Could you say the person's name again who's doing the study?
Yeah, I will. I'll type it in the chat too.
Okay.
It's Otto. I think he has the C in his name, or else it might be like this. But he's out of MIT, and his organization is called Presencing Institute, and he's doing the initiative is called Gaia. It's an acronym for like Global Activation and Initiation or something like this. I don't remember exactly the acronym. So,
thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So, well, thank you guys for being together this morning. Thanks for the beautiful story you share. And yeah, have a great rest of your day, rest of your week. It's been beautiful and inspiring to be with you.
I'm sure thanks to you, the sunset is going to be beautiful. So thank you.
All right, then. Take care. And thank you to Vanessa if you're still watching any of this later after the recording. I just so appreciate the impact that you have had on so many people, the course that you offered that allowed these two beautiful women to connect in the way that they did, the summit that you offered that's brought so much to everybody today, and just an extra shout out of love to you and your family during this time. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye. Take care. Bye.